In today's episode, I'm going to look at Matt Rowell and the setup that's unfolding in the centre bounce at the moment. Obviously, a lot of talk about the fact that he's running into umpires, but there's a reason for this, and I'm going to explain in the clips that I'm going to show you. There's a reason. It's because he's got a left-handed ruck, and I'll explain it in more detail when I go through the clips. I have a solution for him, but as he said in his interview over the weekend, he's not going to change. He's still going to stay the same. But the solution might be something that he could look at, because there's one area in that centre bounce that he is really, really strong at and he's really, really good at. So let's get in the clips and I'll explain how this is unfolding and where he's and his starting positions. Okay, so this is round 3, I think it was, against Melbourne at the MCG. So the reason why they have this set up here, so this is Rowell, and they love him to be in this area. So you got Took Miller, so SUNS are going left the screen. You got Noah Anderson there. The reason for this is because Max Gawn is a right-hander. He's hitting in this area. And Witts is a left-hander hitting in this area. So essentially, this is a dead area. And I'll explain later why this becomes a bit of an issue with the umpire exiting this way. But the reason why they set that up is because of those angles, because of the hit zone. The hit zone is going to be that area when you've got Witts, who's a left-hander, and you've got Max Gawn, who's a right-hander. And majority of the rucks in the competition are right-handers, whereas Witts is left. So he's always going to be, they're both going to be hitting the same area. That's why he stands there. That's why he's in that position. So as the play unfolds, that's where they're trying to hit. Both are trying to hit into that area, and that's why Matt Rowell stands in that situation. So same again, similar. So the SUNS are going left the screen. That's Matt Rowell there. So he's going to the hit zone. They're trying to protect. So you've got the blocker, you've got the sweeper, and you've got the receiver. So generally speaking, that's how most mids set up when they're trying to accommodate. When you've got opposite rucks going, they're hitting to the same area. If Witts was a right-hander, his hit zone would be here. So that's where that's where probably Rowell would be in that position there, and I'll show you where this comes into play later on. So once again, same sort of thing. SUNS going left the screen, Matt Rowell. So protecting that area. In this situation, this is pretty much a dead area. That's why there's no one in that space, because Max Gawn is right-hander hitting there, and Witts is a left-hander going that way. But this is when it becomes tricky. So SUNS are going right of screen. Witts, left-hander, hitting here. Max Gawn, right-hander, hitting here. Where does Rowell stand? Right there, where the umpire is exiting. So this is where it becomes really confusing, and this is where he runs himself in the position where he's going to potentially run into the umpire. So this is where it gets really in a position, or a vulnerable position for him. And I know that he said he doesn't want to change, but as a midfielder, you're worried about the ball, you're worried about the opponent, but then you got to worry about adding another element that could be tricky for him. So, I mean, he's a wonderful player, a wonderful midfielder, but this is just something to think about. So here we come for the game on the weekend. Goldstein, left-hander, he's hitting here. Moyle, who was in, is a right-hander, hitting here. Where's Rowell sit? Right there. Where's the umpire exiting? This way. So this is why they showed a lot on the weekend about this situation. Maybe this might have been different if Witts was in, and then you've got Goldstein, who's a left-hander. Might have been different. They might have backed themselves and say, hey, Witts is going to win the tap. He might start over this side with Rowell. So they might have backed themselves. They might have made sure that, the sweeper in this situation was able to read the tap, but then Rowell might have been on the other side in anticipation for Wittsy to win the hit out, and I would have taken that approach. But in this situation, it's opposite versus opposite, and that's why Rowell is standing in that situation. So this is a different scenario. This is early in the year, so the gather round. Now, the reason why this is different, now, Witt's being the left-hander. If Witt started here, and you've got Sherry, who, as you know, likes to go on the line, and if he started in this position, you've got Sherry, who's a right-hander, hitting in this area, and you've got Witts, who's a left-hander, hitting in this area. Rowell might actually start on this side, but the reason why he's starting here is because both rucks are facing this way. So that is a dead area. Behind the rucks is the dead area. It's a really hard hit to hit to. That's why he starts here. That's why he ends up doing this wraparound. He pushes LDU that way, he wraps around, and then Witts just drops it, and away he goes out his right foot. That's why he's setting up in this position. So essentially, you look at that and you go, well, that's an opportunity, but it's only because both the rucks are this way. If they're facing each other, he might start over that side. But it's all to do with angles. And yes, he's in the way of the umpire, but I believe that Rowell is basically he's in that area not to use the umpire. I reckon the umpire's irrelevant. It's all to do with where the rucks are facing, and it's facing that way. So in this situation, this is what happens. So roll the tape, and they get around a little bit because they're holding each other, but then there's a wraparound, and out he goes. So it's all to do with the angles in relation to his ruck, but also where the rucks are facing. So now I know what you're going to ask. So what is the solution for Matt Rowell? Well, I think this is a solution for him. And I reckon he's not going to change. I reckon he's still going to try and start in this area and wrap around in that, depending on... But this is against West Coast Eagles early in the year. He had 8 clearances in this game, and when it was round 3 against Melbourne, I think he had 9 that's centre bounce clearances. But he starts here as the blocker. So the Suns are going right of screen. He starts at the blocker. Just watch his movement. He ends up actually getting to this position where he would if he started here. But the difference with this is the ability to work. He's off the line, so it gives him time and space to come at the ball. But by the time he gets to the same spot, he would have ended up, if he started here, the umpire is away from the contest. So I think this is, and he's really strong, uses his body really well, so this could be a solution for him. This could be a really big solution for him, because the times I've seen him play as a blocker, he's super powerful, really good in and under, clean with his hands, but the ability to get there. So if I roll the tape, you just watch his movement to get there. He's used his body really well against Graham. He's checked him 1, twice, and by the time he gets there, where he would, if he started here, to get to the same position, look at the clearance of the umpire. Umpire's away from the contest, but he still gets to the same area as he would if he started in the same spot. But this time, he's just doing his work, starting as a blocker and coming in. So he rolled the tape again. So there's back against Melbourne. Look how far he is there. So Suns are going left of screen, and he's in the blocker position. They roll the tape. Look at that. He's already got separation on his man. Umpire's away from the scene. Really good. He's so good as a blocker. And out he goes. He does his work really hard, gets that separation. Because he's got distance off the line, it gives him the ability to check, use his body, and come at the ball. Same again. And this is against Clayton Oliver. So see the distance he's got as the blocker? So Suns are going left of screen. Look at the distance, the ability to work there. Do his work really, really early to give him time and space to get there. Umpire's coming this way is not even a factor, but still the same result as what he would if he started right near the behind the umpire. So roll the tape, and he's done his work here. He's got really low with his centre of gravity. Works off his opponent. And away he goes. And he's out. So yes, I know that he said on the weekend that he's not going to change, and I agree with him to some point, because you've got to be able to, as a midfielder, you've got to be able to be chest to where the rucks are. And that perfect example was Sherry versus Witts, standing next to each other. And it happens with Briggs as well. Wherever they face, wherever they're standing against each other, wherever they're facing is where the mids want to be. And if the umpire's in that way, I guarantee you that Rowell is not really thinking about the umpire where he's exiting. I reckon he's looking purely and simply at where the rucks are. And you probably add Meek to that equation as well. But if there's a solution, I think that Rowell should go as the blocker. He is so good with using his bodies. And as you saw in those clips, he gets distance away from the line, be able to check his opponent and then come at the ball. The end result, where he ends up with receiving those balls, and I could show you others as well, he gets in the same position as he would if he was starting behind the umpire. So if there's a solution for him, I reckon he starts as a blocker because he's super brilliant in that area. Not only that area, but his ability to go left foot or right foot from clearances is super powerful, and that's what they want from him. So there's my take on a lot of controversy that's been surrounding Matt Rowell and the umpire contact over the past week.